Folks, we have one more counselor who is logging in, so give us another minute and we'll begin our meeting.
County and southern Humboldt, right about one big road today, the high 73 degrees. Along the coast, it was a little bit of a start to the day. It took a little bit longer for that warm up to occur because we had a foggy start, and we also saw winds out of the north prevail, and that capped the heat. Otherwise, we saw highs go up into the 60s in Willow Creek.
And to the individual calling in, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
That we're not tonight. Yeah, perfect. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So this hopefully will be Jackson. Okay.
All right, it looks like we have a full council this evening. And folks are still logging in, but we'll get started with our meeting. So at this point, I will, in essence, reconvene to open session. And I do want to alert folks to, and I want to make sure I read this correctly, the fact that we pulled one of the items from the closed session. The restraining order stipulated duration was observed and matter dismissed on January 20th, 2022. So the item is being dropped or was dropped from the agenda. So just realize that the closed session agenda regarding a restraining order, City of Trinidad versus Mike Morgan, was not discussed in closed session. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone is aware of that. At this point, we will stand for the pledge and say the pledge. All right. Thank you very much for joining us this evening for our February 8th City Council meeting. And we have, let's see, our first order of business is to approve the agenda. And I just want to give folks an update that later in the discussion agenda items, item number 6, we are going to pull that from tonight's meeting. One of the candidates who submitted a letter, who's in the packet, is not able to attend tonight. And so for equal treatment of candidates, we will push that to and we're going to have a second meeting in February. I believe it's the 27th, whatever the last Tuesday of the month is. So please know that item number 6, we will table that until our second meeting in February. So
The 22nd.
22nd, thank you, 22nd. So at this point, are there any changes being asked of the agenda from council? Jack? Jack, I don't know why we can't hear you.
He's muted.
Still muted.
Did we still have to pull number 5 from the consent agenda for discussion during regular discussion?
Okay, Dave, do you want to, Jack, if you could log out and log back in so that we can try to hear you. There has been. Go ahead, Sharon.
I think we also wanted to pull item number 4. And that may be what Jack's trying to say as well.
Yes, number 4 and 5, there's been lots of public comment asking to pull from the consent number 4 and number 5 and make them the first 2 items of the action agenda. Discussion action agenda items.
Yeah.
Point of order, Mayor. Point of order, Mayor. Would you please read talking about instead of stating numbers, because we can't tell, we're on the phone. So if you could read the whole item that's listed, that would be a big help. We know what you're talking about.
Will do. So the call has been to pull from the consent agenda contract with Best Krieger for supplemental legal advice in connection to issues involving local Native American tribes, and contract with Coleman Engineering to provide qualified and certified chief water treatment plant utility operations for the city of Trinidad. So both of those items, I'm hearing that we wish to pull those from consent and cover them first and second in the discussion section. Any other substantive changes to the agenda that are being requested?
Steve, I just want to know if you hear me.
Yes, Jack, you're with
Thank you.
us.
Back in again. Thanks for getting those 2 moved.
You bet. And I'm on 2 screens now. So again, if I could ask folks to use the raise hand feature if you're in the Zoom. If you're calling in on phone, then just pick a time to blurt out. Any other substantive changes that folks want from the agenda? All right, seeing none, if we can have a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Excuse me. I'm blurting out. Sorry, point of order. So we missed it. Are you pulling the discussion decision regarding appointment to fill the city council vacancy through December 2022 and holding it over to a special meeting? Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you very much.
Are you ready for a motion?
I'm ready.
I'll make a motion that we accept the revised agenda.
And I'll second the motion.
All right, we have a first and we have a second. Gabe, just for consistency, if we can do roll call votes for all the votes, that would be helpful.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. Can I just make sure everybody can hear me all right?
You are coming through loud and clear.
Okay, great. So we've got a motion by Councilmember Grover, seconded by Kelly, to table discussion item 6 regarding the council vacancy to the special meeting on February 22nd, and to pull consent agenda items 4 and 5, one of them for legal service, Best and Krieger, and the other for Coleman Engineering. And with that, we'll go with a vote. Councilmember Grover?
Aye.
Kelly?
Aye.
West?
Yes.
And Ladwig?
Aye.
Passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. And just a quick comment, Ms. Hostler-Carmison, from time to time, little noises pop out of your screen. So thank you very much. All right, so moving on, thank you for that discussion. And also just as a general comment, thank you for the folks who expressed their interest in having those in public. Those items that we pulled from consent into public, very much appreciate that input. So at this point, we are now working on approval of minutes from both December 14th and, from December 14th, January 11th, and January 25th, the special meeting. So at this point, let's do one at a time. If there are any substantive changes being requested for the December 14th meeting minutes. All right, seeing and hearing none. Moving on to the January 11th meeting minutes. Any substantive changes, additions, deletions? Again, seeing and hearing none. Moving on to the joint meeting of the Council, Planning Commission, and the STR Advisory Committee. Any substantive changes to the minutes from that meeting, from the January 25th group meeting? All right, again, hearing and seeing none. Do we have a motion for the minutes from those three meetings?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes from all three meetings.
Second that.
All right, first from Grover, second from West.
Quick question. Since I wasn't involved in the first two, do I need to abstain from approving those?
I believe you do.
I will do so. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, so we'll have the record set straight that Ms. Kelly was not participating in the December, was it the January meeting as well?
The January 11th, I was not, but the late January one, I was.
Okay, got it. Okay, so you'll be on record as an abstention from those two, but with that, we'll say for the rest, we'll go with the vote. Councilmember Grover,
Aye.
West,
Yes.
and Ladwig.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Minutes are approved as submitted.
All right, thank you very much. And at this point, we'll move on to council reports and committee assignments. Mr. Grover, I'll start with you.
I was able to attend the Redwood Coast Energy Authority meeting again. I'm looking forward to maybe passing the torch. I might only have a couple months left here, residents in Trinidad. Mayor Ladwig did show some interest in that, so I'm looking forward to maybe inviting him to the next meeting as the alternate and getting his feet wet in that and seeing what they do there.
Please do.
It's got, it's really tying into a lot of the way we're going to get energy here in the future too. A lot of it, a lot of solar arrays are being set up, and we're really leading the nation in this kind of production. So any knowledge we can obtain as a council would be very helpful. That's pretty much all I got to report. You probably get a lot more if you visit the site and start thinking about actually using them as an alternative to PG&E, because they're more cutting edge and they're coming up with a lot better systems of rebates and stuff as people transition into having their own solar arrays and, their own energy production and islanding, and a lot to do with storage, battery storage and stuff like that. That's going to be what's going to be happening here within the next decade. So that's it from me. I think that's all I have to say that's relevant to this meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Grover. Ms. Kelly, I know you're brand new, but I believe you attended a Gateway meeting right around your appointment.
I actually attended the League of California Cities training for new mayors and council members. And so I can give a report out on that. I did have an email exchange with the Gateway Committee. They're working on their strategic plan, so I can update in the next meeting on that. But just briefly, the League of California Cities does training for council members, planning commissioners, city staff. And I attended a virtual conference. It was January 20th, 21st, 27th, and 28th. So it was like 3 days of virtual meetings. It was relatively inexpensive. It was about $250. I highly recommend it, especially for new council members or planning commissioners. They went over things like financial responsibility for the city, Brown Act, how to develop effective city councils. They had a really good kind of mock city council meeting, which they called Dysfunction Junction. And that was highly entertaining. But what I just wrote down a few takeaways because it's, 4 days of meetings. So I don't know, I'll spare you guys the details, but there's a lot of slides if anybody wants to see some of the content. But I guess I would say, first of all, rules and structure. I think the city of Trinidad, we're very self-critical sometimes. And talking to the other city folks, both staff and elected officials, and hearing some of the stories and some of the things they are challenged with, my takeaway was that the city of, as a community and the city of Trinidad, I think we deserve a little bit of a pat on the back because I think we actually do follow a lot of the rules and procedures. At least we try very hard to, and I want to thank the community for keeping us all honest in that way. So that was one of my big takeaways was we're not doing so bad, comparatively speaking. There was some good, there's a great slide that I got on budget priorities. I'm sure Eli has access to this information, and it was really interesting that the state will have a huge budget for things like COVID and homelessness and zero emission vehicles, childcare, clean energy, water infrastructure, and it hit a number of areas where I think the city of Trinidad, thanks to Becky, can apply for some grants, and it really aligns with some of our priorities. There was a lot of discussion about social media and the fact that social media now is a way that a lot of elected officials are sort of accidentally violating the Brown Act by commenting on social media. And then even if other members of a council, for example, like those posts, if they just even hit like, that's considered an interaction. So that was kind of interesting. There were some good quotes about public debate. As I said, I think we do a pretty good job as a community, but one of the takeaways was disagree without being disagreeable, and then also debate is the oxygen of democracy. And I thought that was a really good thing to remember. And then there were some good ideas about using town halls to go deep on topics, and things like general plans, annual budgets, things like that. I think we could maybe do some more town halls, especially after COVID clears. But like most conferences, it would have been great to talk to everybody in person, and virtual is not quite as good, but I definitely thought it was worthwhile, and I'd recommend it. So, thank you. That's my 2-minute summary of the 4-day meeting. If you have any questions, let me know.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kelly. And Mr. West.
I've got 2 items to talk about. First thing is the last HCOG meeting. In the meeting, we reviewed the 2021 projects and accomplishments, and I was pretty impressed with what HCOG has been doing. They worked on their regional transportation plan, which is called VROOM, VROOM, and they'll be setting goals now for transportation for the next 20 years, from 2022 to 2042. They've got the regional bike plan, the Eureka Corridor project, which is pretty fantastic, the Bay Trail, which looks like it's going to be put together pretty soon, and other local trails, including the Little River Trail that they're hopefully gets going pretty soon. They've also been setting aside monies for the various local cities and the county. Unfortunately, Trinidad gets the smallest amount of money because we're the smallest city, but we're still able to use it to keep our roads in pretty good shape, so that's good. I asked the HCOG director, to Beth Burks, to attend the March meeting to give us a brief idea of what HCOG has done and what they plan on doing and how it affects Trinidad. So hopefully we'll get a short introduction to HCOG at the next meeting. I think that'd be nice. We also have decided to get back to we're getting back to our trails meeting since Councilman Davies has retired from the council. I've taken off with Michelle Kelly, and we will be meeting on the 15th at 5 o'clock next week. We have a nice agenda. We're hoping to start seeing if we can get some of these trail issues taken care of. So we'll meet next week with hopefully some good ideas, and we'll come back next meeting with some good information for you.
Thank you very much, Jack. I was able to attend a Humboldt Transit Authority meeting the last week, and there is a special city council meeting with the city of Eureka tomorrow night, and the topic will include plans to convert one of the local parking spaces in Eureka to an intermodal transit center. And if anyone is interested in sort of the larger picture about transit in Humboldt County, a lot of money is going to come into the county for hydrogen fueled buses, for solar arrays to power buses. And this intermodal center is a big part of that, to tie us to the entire North State. In other words, through the Modal Center, you can work your way all the way down to the Bay Area, Sacramento, on public transport. So for those looking to adjust their carbon footprint and jump into public transit, this is the very beginning stages and a very exciting time for transit in the area. And then Jack and Eli and I attended a meeting with the Pacific Watershed Associates and GHD to review our efforts towards our water. And I wanted to give a brief summary of that. Some of the efforts underway is, as you'll see in the city manager's report, there's quite a bit of money coming in, or at least that we're applying for, rather, for water storage and fixing leaky pipes. Water storage, the first thing you need for water storage is a suitable place to put it. Geologically speaking, access, affordability. And so efforts are underway right now to really pursue up to 1 million gallons of water storage, which would give us almost 2 weeks of water usage. So that is really exciting. And some really exciting uses of the water storage to, in essence, to enhance the efficiency of the plant. So water being pulled from the creek during mild flows, and then during heavy flows when the turbidity is high, to turn off the direct line of silt filled water and use this water that's been stored that was nice and clean. So just some really exciting ways to increase the efficiency of the plant, increase the life of the plant, increase our resiliency. So just wanted to give an update on that. And you can see again in the city manager's report, quite a bit of money being sought after to build these tanks and to fix these leaks. So, and I believe soon, I think even tomorrow, there's a chance to go walk these properties and really start to put eyes on land for possible use. And so please look for updates in the coming months about possible properties and whatnot for the city to make decisions on. So that's the update that I have from both HTA and from our city water efforts. At this point, any questions from the general public on any of the reports given by the counselors? Just to make sure that we're answering your questions. Paul, I see your hand is up.
Yes, you briefly mentioned that you spoke to PWA. Are you going to be giving a report on what you discussed with them? And I specifically liked an update on what they've accomplished.
I believe I just gave a report on what that meeting was about, all the different water storage efforts and water resiliency efforts. That was with PWA and with GHD and with the city manager.
That's a little bit unclear to me because we had applied for a grant for water storage apart from what PWA theoretically we're supposed to be doing. Are you saying that they have both been working together, PWA and GHD, on planning the storage?
Right. So GHD is our city engineer who helps us with the plant, the water plant, the filtration, the distribution of water, and PWA is involved in essence, finding new ways to store, deliver, and whatnot the water. So both entities are working simultaneously to work on our resiliency. Jack, I saw that your hand was up. Did you want to add something?
I just wanted to add that PWA has been putting out a number of different types of maps, look at locations for storage. They've done a great deal of background work to try to get us prepared for the potential of getting some kind of water storage. And we've worked with them on understanding a little bit about where our water tanks are going to be. So we've learned a lot about the water tanks, and we're waiting now. What we have to do is wait for some kind of a grant in order to begin moving in the direction of getting these put in. But they're right now have given us a great deal of information to at least get us an idea of what's out there and what we can do.
Really look, how about this, Paula? Look for in the next month or two, basically a list of properties that are suitable for, cost to develop, geologic. They're not on a steep slope. They're not really super far away from the plant or from the storage. So that's what they're currently spending their effort on, is to identify places where we can store suitable amounts of water, not 100,000 gallons, but we're talking large amounts of storage.
Now, there was a senior gentleman at the last meeting who said that there was county-owned property near where our water plant is that might be available. Do you know if they've investigated that?
That's all part of it, right? So I think we might be a little premature to start talking specific parcels because they're going to assess. They have, like Jack said, they have a large map. Both the engineer that is handling our water distribution and filtration and PWA are really going to review of all the sites within the sphere of influence, right? Within the watershed, where makes the most sense, elevation, slope, all these different things that are being considered. Does that answer your question?
Almost. I'd like to see something in writing at some point, or the maps or the maps available.
You will, once we have a list of suitable properties, then it's up to the city to decide which ones do we pursue. There's going to be costs associated, there's permits, there's all sorts of things that the city would have to consider. Jack?
If you would like to see a map too, there is one in the city manager's office that you could ask him if it would be all right to come in and see it.
Which office is this?
City manager's office.
City manager's office across. Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else?
One more thing. We're on items not on the agenda.
Nope. We are on
Well,
council reports.
yes, I have something about the financial statement that was very confusing.
Paula, this is the part where I asked if anyone had questions about any of the counselor reports. We'll move to the next item.
The counselor, that's not a counselor report. That's
Nope.
Eli's report.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments for the counselors on any of the reports that we gave? All right, seeing none, we will move on to staff reports. Eli.
Yes, I will first see if Lieutenant Miller is on the line. I searched through, I didn't see him. But if he is maybe on the phone, he can get started first. So I'll pause for a few seconds here.
Yeah, I don't see him either, Eli. There's only, I don't see him.
Okay, well, very good. So I will proceed. So in the packet, there's the city manager's staff report. As I had indicated, I went to the city manager's conference in Monterey, and unfortunately on my way in Oakland, just briefly going in to grab a couple donuts, someone stole my laptop, which was in my, which was in the trunk. And as a result, I wasn't able to put together the staff report by typing it, but I verbally dictated parts of it and also dictated an agenda item. And then I also want to thank Becky Price Hall, who prepared the remainder of the staff report. And she gave an update in there regarding our current stormwater improvement project, also regarding the two water grants that you were referring to, that deal with storage and deal with fixing leaky pipes, and also an emergency intertie with West Haven. So in addition to that, I have my monthly update from Verizon. So Verizon says that the new tower that they are putting together in West Haven, the in-service forecast for that tower, which will replace the Trinidad Head Site Tower, has been pushed to the end of February. They say they are still working on fiber delivery to the site. And then we're also working with the Native community and have representatives from the Trinidad Rancheria, from the Yurok tribe, and the Churi Ancestral Society that will help us in, once the site is decommissioned on Trinidad Head, in turning that back to its natural setting. Also, we are part of the SB 1383 Cal Recycle process. Every city in the state is obligated to be involved in that new process, which is dealing with organics. That's what SB 1383 is. And because of the size of our city, we have been able to obtain a waiver for the city complying with that. But in the meantime, it would be great if residents can start looking into the suggested SB 1383 composting, basically trying to get food waste, including coffee grounds, out of the waste stream and out of landfills, because it ends up creating methane gas, which contributes to global warming. So any kind of food waste, if it can be composted, that would be ideal. And then we're also working on a county level with Edgar and Associates. So our city, the other 6 cities in the county, and the county have contracted with Edgar and Associates. Fortunately, because of our size, we're paying the least amount for that. But they will be preparing the proper protocol for us to follow to be in compliance with that Senate bill and that act that was passed. In addition to that, the governor has indicated that the mask mandate will be lifted on February the 15th for vaccinated residents for most indoor public places. And that's all I have. At a future meeting, I know we have quite a bit on the agenda, but possibly we'll see it either in March or in April. I may give you a little bit of information, possibly over several meetings from the city managers conference. They got quite involved into finances. So that's something I would like to share, especially as we start heading towards the budget process. So I'll open it up now if there are any questions from the council or the public.
I see one hand up from Ms. Hostler-Carmison.
Thank you, Mayor Ladwig. Eli, if you could please go over your comments regarding restoration of Trinidad Head, restoring, and I also am not aware of any invitation to Trinidad Rancheria to participate in that. So if you could clarify that, please.
Sure. Trevor Parker is working on that, our city planner, and she's coordinating that effort with Verizon. And so if you have not been contacted yet, you will be contacted shortly. And then we are making sure that they are not going to be doing the decommissioning until we can verify that the coverage from Verizon is hopefully equal to or better than what we currently have. But yes, I will talk with Trevor Parker and find out the timeline, and we'll get back to you, to the Yurok tribe, and to the Churi Ancestral Society, and let them know as far as more details on that decommissioning.
Thank you. I just heard you say that you would be working with the Yurok tribe and Churi Ancestral Society on restoring it to its natural condition. So that should also include Trinidad Rancheria.
Yeah, and actually, maybe it didn't come clear, but I actually said Trinidad Rancheria before I said the other two.
Oh, I'm sorry, Eli.
Okay.
I did not hear it. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Sure.
Any other questions? I see Mr. Grover's hand up.
I just wanted to thank Eli for that report and let anybody out there know that I have 3 different size and style composters here if somebody wants to swing by Edward Street and get some ideas if they don't have one. Because we've used it in the garden, and I just come up with a lot of different stuff, and I have 1-4 coffee grounds, different acidities, and different things that you can do for different kinds of soil. So if anybody's interested in getting going on that, I'm available.
Thank you very much. Ms. Levine, I saw your hand go back up.
Yes, I found several items in the financial statement very confusing on page 16, which.
And actually, we'll be doing the financial statement. That's part of the consent calendar, consent agenda. So that'll be coming up in a few moments.
I thought that was.
It'll be after items from the floor.
Yeah, my bad, Paula. I thought it was in the staff report. It's actually in the consent.
Okay, let me know when I could ask you a question about it. Thank you.
I will, for sure. Any other questions for the city manager on staff report? Okay, at this point, we will move on to items from the floor. At this time, members of the public may comment on items not appearing on the agenda. Individual comments will be limited to 3 minutes or less. Comments should be directed to the council as a whole and not individual council members or staff. Council and staff responses will be minimal for non-agenda items. At this point, do we have any items from the floor?
Hello, everyone. My name is Tyler James. I'm at 560 Edward Street. I just wanted to inform everybody that on February 6th, Mike Morgan and I filed a citizen's complaint form. We have been locked out of the City Hall against State of California CDPH guidance. We are both self-attested mask exempt people. I ask that you please follow the state guidance and stop this harassment at once. Thank you.
Any other items from the floor?
Yes, I have it's a question first. I'm not sure if I understood it right, but it seems that in December, you guys have to vote each month to keep doing these online and telephone meetings. Is that correct?
Yes, when we call the meeting to order, the resolution is ongoing, authorizing continued use of virtual meetings, resolution 2021-12. Authorizing continued use of virtual meetings. So it's a standing order or process rather that is inherent in the opening of every meeting.
So you voted to do this. Everybody voted unanimously to do this still.
Yes.
Will it be continued next month given the dropping of the COVID restrictions?
We will make that assessment when we have it on the agenda.
Okay, sounds great. I've already sent in this, but I'll just say it really quickly. Hopefully I'm still within my 3 minutes. I love my freedom more than I'm scared of a germ. Do you? Honorable Councilman, the City of Trinidad Council and staff must stop trying to prop up their COVID nonsense with their call-in council meetings. City council meetings should be held in person, publicly, openly, and in town hall. You must accommodate me and any other person who will not wear a face covering or get some experimental injection or take some fake test. You must know by now, because we all know now, only the complicit believe COVID lies anymore. Sincerely and with all due respect, Mike Morgan. Thank you.
I see Ashley Fleshner, your hand is up.
Yes. Hello. I'm actually Patty Fleshner's son. Some of you may know her, and I'm speaking on behalf of her as she has a real problem with internet connectivity at home. I wish to draw something to the council's and the citizens of Trinidad's attention. That is that there is a heavy amount of loitering going on in the vicinity of the library and the museum and the park there at the front. I believe Patty, I saw an email she sent to Gabe for record today, but this has resulted in at least one person now today quitting working at the library. There's a lot of verbal abuse and bottles and public urination occurring, and the museum, which is manned by a number of docents and volunteers and is very hard to keep, going also. We're having some challenges with regards to people verbally assaulting individuals as they come to visit these. Very lovely, I think, facade to the front of Trinidad as you come in. So I'm very concerned about it. I know my mother's very concerned about it, and I have heard of others in the community that are also concerned about it. And I just wanted to bring it up, and I will get off now. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, and we will bring this up with Lieutenant Miller. Unfortunately, he usually attends these meetings, and unfortunately, he's not at this meeting, so we cannot bring that to his attention tonight. But Eli has a very close connection with Lieutenant Miller and can pass that along to him tomorrow morning.
And just for your information, I have been in touch with Lieutenant Miller regarding that, but I will get back in touch with him to make sure that he realizes that it's still an ongoing problem.
Thank you so much.
Other items from the floor? All right. At this point, then, we will move on to the consent agenda. At this point, all matters on the consent agenda are considered routine by the City Council and are enacted in one motion. There is no separate discussion for any of these items. If discussion is requested by a council member, that item is removed from the consent calendar, considered separately. A single opportunity for public comment on the consent agenda is available to the public. So at this point, Ms. Levine, public comment is allowed and welcomed, rather, at this point for the consent agenda, of which the financial report is one of them.
Okay. This is about the water. 601, page 16, it says the net income for the current period is $73,656. On page 15, also 601 water, it says the net income is $27,812. And also the current year totals are completely different on both pages. So that's confusing. And let's see what page is this. Number 75300 for contracted services, also contracted services for water. The current period is $37,915. And the question is that all engineering services, PWA and GHD? But in looking through all the financial statements, I found that they contradict from page to page.
So, and just so you know, we are limited if we're going to discuss this much. So I'm going to ask Eli to give a brief response. And then if we need to, we can pull it from the consent agenda and actually get into a discussion. Or we'll see what Eli's recommendation is, but there also may be an opportunity to ask these specific questions of Eli on how the page is set up at a later time. So let's just hear from Eli. I just want to be respectful of the process. Eli, can you respond to Paulo's questions, comments?
Yeah, the financial statements are prepared by our accounting firm. I would have to ask them what they have in each of those categories. Meanwhile, we do have our city clerk, Gabe Adams, and one of our administrative assistants, Anton. So if either of them who are on the call are aware of what you're asking, maybe they could weigh in. Otherwise, I will contact the accounting firm and try to get a little more detail for you.
All right, at this point, Gabe or Anton, is there a way that you can answer generally? Or is this better for an open discussion, decision, action item? What's your response, Gabe?
Yeah, I'm happy to, discuss this with Paula, especially offline. Or just kind of give you a brief understanding right now, if I can. I mean, the financial statements are created, like I said, like Eli mentioned, by our CPA firm. And it is a little misleading. I would steer you away from the net income line on the second page of the water fund, because if you look up at the bottom of the water fund page under total expense, in the right-hand column, far right column, it says 28.43. That's the percent of the budget that I understand is remaining. It's not, the most straightforward way to present the financial statements, but if you didn't know that that's the amount remaining left in the total budget, then of course, you might, if you didn't drill down to the numbers, you might not recognize that. But yeah, Paula, if wanted to discuss this in further, I could show you this, how the statement works at any time. Happy to do that after the meeting.
Okay, well, not after the meeting, but maybe later in the week, but.
Oh, yeah, anytime.
He meant after, any time in the.
Outside of the meeting.
Yeah, outside of the meeting.
Okay, the major issue is that there's a contradiction in the figures from one page to the other. It said, verbally it says the same exact thing, and the figures are different. It's just, okay, we'll talk about it another time, and I'll get.
Yeah, thank you, Paula. We usually devote an entire meeting to our financial statements and our financial sort of goal setting and whatnot. So I appreciate your interest in the details, and it is a heavy lift to understand this sort of spreadsheet kind of presentation. So at this point, do we have any other comments on the consent agenda? Again, pulling items 4 and 5 for discussion next. All right, seeing none, may I have a motion regarding the consent agenda?
I'll make the motion. Yep, I got it.
I move that we accept the consent agenda with number 4 and 5 being moved to discussion.
I'll second that.
First from West, second from Grover. Mr. Adams, do you mind doing a roll call?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. So Councilmember West's first, Grover second, remove consent agenda items number 4 and 5 for discussion. I'm guessing we'll take those probably first in order in the discussion. So we'll start with a vote. How about Councilmember West?
Yes.
Grover?
Yes.
Ladwig?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. All right, folks, now it's time to move on to the discussion action agenda items. We will take from the consent number 4, approved contract with Coleman Engineering to provide qualified and certified chief water treatment plant utility operations for the city of Trinidad. Eli, do you mind covering this topic?
Okay. Yeah, I will get started. We also have Russ Gans who could weigh in regarding either of these two contracts, 4 and 5. So the water plant, we are required to have a chief operator of the plant, a CPO, and we had lost our CPO, which was Ryan, and he went to another job in another field. And as a result, we had advertised several times for T3 and also T2 operators. We're a T3 plant. We're required to have the CPO as a T3 or a T4 or a T5, but we can't have the operator as a T2. So out of our search, we also went ahead and contracted with Coleman Engineering to provide interim water plant operations while we were doing the search. We contacted a total of 6 or 7 different firms and received quotes from them. So at least the ones that had someone available. Some of those were including Jacobs Engineering, Coleman Engineering, Pace Engineering, and Water Talent, and then our local sources, which are GHD, PWA, and SHN. Unfortunately, the local ones had nobody. GHD have people in Arizona, but they don't have people in California with the proper water licenses. So it boiled down to Jacobs Engineering, but unfortunately, they were not in a current position to provide the service to us. And then, and part of the reason why I had reached out to Jacobs Engineering is because I knew that they were handling the wastewater plant in Crescent City, and they're handling both the water and wastewater in Brookings. So I was hoping that they would be able to handle it in the interim for us. After that, I was able to contact Water Talent. They're out of Southern California. They had one person available, but would not be available for at least 2 weeks. And they were out of Arizona. And then Coleman Engineering had an individual available immediately, and they were out of Roseville, which is in Northern California. So as a result, we had them tour the plant. We also had Jacobs tour the plant. And then I had extensive discussions with Water Talent. And of course, I talked to all three of our engineering firms that we deal with. So ultimately, Coleman received the contract to do the interim of the plant. And we went through the hiring process to see if we could find people. We were able to find one T3 and one T2. And other than that, we've found a couple T1s, but they don't qualify for being able to help run the plant. So unfortunately, the only one that could have worked for us as an employee chose not to be the chief plant operator and did not want to be the chief plant operator. So she is currently working on the distribution system in the city. And what we did is we had to go with Coleman Engineering. Otherwise, we could have gone with Water Talent, but we would have had to wait and get the person from Arizona. So Coleman has been providing for November. They started it towards the end of October. So November, December, and January. And then in January, we had a meeting with them, and we talked about having a contract where they could be the plant operator, again, for the short term while they're searching and be training people. So this is the contract that's on the table right now. They started training people 2 weeks ago. So they are training a T2 currently, and they're going to be bringing on a T3 to train. The contract is designed that it will disappear, as soon as possible. Once we get our employees, get the people that they train will eventually become our employees, and then we'll do away with this contract. The only other relationship we would want to do in the future is to have either Coleman Engineering or a firm similar to them that specializes in water plants and water distribution be a contracted resource to us so that our people can always contact them to get advice. The person that's currently has been working for our plant as a chief plant operator, Phil Godman, he's a T3, and he's worked over 20 years in a variety of water plants. So he has extensive experience. And so that's number one. Number two, it's extremely important, a highest priority for the city, since we do have the water system, to provide quality water to our residents and water customers, because we provide water to customers that are also outside of the city limits. But either way, whether it's the residents, the commercial businesses in the city or outside the city limits, a number one priority is to provide quality, safe, reliable water. So that's part of the reason why we did contract with a third party. And then the second reason is because the state State Water Resources Control Board oversees the various plants throughout the state. And they are looking at us and looking at other cities and other districts to make sure that we have proper people in place. So we've been in touch with the state, talking to them even before Ryan left. And then subsequently, they've had some concerns when we were doing our transition, and they have a comfort level with Coleman Engineering. And as a result, they are satisfied with the plant operations currently. We're also doing what's called best practices. So we're looking at the way things were done previously, the way things are done now between the water plant, the distribution system, and we're looking to make some improvements with suggestions from both Coleman Engineering and GHD. So that's basically in a nutshell. I'll turn it over to Russ so he could weigh in a little bit on the contract process, and then we can open it up to the council and public.
Thank you. And the city manager prior to tonight's meeting, he mentioned that there'd been some concern raised about the method for procurement for these services, and in particular, whether a competitive bidding protocol was followed. There's actually two exemptions that apply in this circumstance to the public bidding requirements under the California Government Code. And you'll see this agreement scoped as one for professional services. There's an express exemption from competitive bid based procurement for professional services. Professional services are retained by public entities like the City of Trinidad on a qualification-based selection criteria. Also, these services would constitute special services under the government code in that they're very specified, specific service being provided by an engineer with appropriate licensure and certification to operate water treatment plants, which is very specialized area in California and other jurisdictions. So with that, in essence, is a summation on the propriety of the procurement.
Thank you very much, both Russ and Eli. So at this point, any questions from the council regarding this this item? Go ahead, Cheryl.
I just have a quick question, Eli, just to compare costs. I know that you pointed out very well that this contract can be essentially terminated once we find staff, so it's essentially a stopgap. So, but just comparing the, say, 400,000 or so, if we did do this for a year, what are the typical staff and associated costs? I looked at the budget, it appeared it was about 200,000. So does that sound about right to you, the normal, just to compare the two?
Yeah, ballpark. I mean, we do have, a situation now where we're hiring, a firm to operate it temporarily. So the cost is much greater when you're doing something on a temporary basis. And when I got quotes from Jacobs Engineering and Water Talent and Coleman Engineering, because they were the three that at least had people and had the numbers that they could give me, they were all pretty close in cost. So it was quite, it was much higher than we would want to or be able to pay, over a long period of time. But in the short term, in order to make sure that the services continued functioning properly, we had to resort to one of these firms.
Yeah, it sounds like kind of an emergency situation. So, and I guess a quick follow-up question would be, is there an opportunity down the road for, as we find new staff, so we can obviously terminate the agreement. Can we also look at, is there a different in management? So I got the question from a few folks about how we currently manage the water plants and whether or not the management structure hierarchy at the water plant. Is that correct? So the tier, T3 versus T1s, T2s, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. The chief plant operator is required to be a T3 or greater, T4,
Okay.
T5. The state determines that. In our conversation with the state, they indicated that in their scoring for the plant, that if you're 39 points or higher, you need to be a T3 plant. We're at 46, so therefore we're a T3 plant, and it's required that we have a T3, T4, T5 as the lead operator. Otherwise, assisting them could be T2s. So it could be 1 or 2 T2s.
Okay. All right. Thanks. And then I remembered what I was really going to ask was I also got a question about, will these costs be passed to the citizens, the folks, the water users, right? So the extra cost, the delta between what we normally pay and what we'll pay with the contract, how do we manage that?
Yeah, we're due to do a water rate study. That water rate study will be done this year. We can then, adjust rates after the water rate study is done. We're hoping to be able to sort of stabilize what we think our costs are going to be. Even if we start the water rate study, we're going to be focused more on whatever these temporary costs are being phased out, and our permanent cost with the new people would be phased in. But we will have a water rate study this year, and part of that cost will be passed on to the consumer.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the time.
Other questions for Eli from the council before I open it up to the general public? Nope. I saw 2 heads shaking. So at this point, any questions from the general public on our contract with Coleman Engineering?
This is Mike Morgan. I have just a clarification. I haven't looked at this very much. I noticed there were a couple letters from the public, and I wondered if you'd read those in on this matter. If you can find those while I'm talking, that'd be great. I looked at Exhibit A, the city responsibilities and tasks not included, and the schedule and all the fees and all that. And what are we getting for this $35,000 a month? Just the fact that they have a license and we don't at the right P or T level, whichever you guys are talking about? It's scary, I guess. And thinking that I'm not comforted by Attorney Russ Gann saying that we didn't do a competitive bid because it's considered a professional service. That's just silly. I don't know what we've done with this, but I'll look more into it, and I'll probably have a few questions that I'll handle offline.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Go ahead, Bryce.
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Mayor and everyone. Thanks. Yeah, it's the price tag that's got everybody freaked out about this measure. Even if it, if you get started on this, you got to give them 30 days notice to cancel. So that's 2 months at least, $35,000 a month. As I understand it, Ryan was performing this function himself until he left, and he got his training here locally I think you can get it at College of the Redwoods. And I'm pretty sure that the state used to let us continue using an operator as long as we had somebody who was getting the training for the higher ranking and would, get the license within a reasonable time. I just can't believe that. I know Ryan didn't make maybe $5,000 a month or something. And to go from $5,000 to $35,000 a month, it just seems unbelievable. There's got to be a better way to handle this. I mean, and then just saying, well, we'll just pass it on to the ratepayers. I mean, that scares me even worse. The rates would have to be quadrupled or something. So I don't know, maybe my 3 minutes is up, but I hope you guys are really thinking about this and don't just rush into a contract that's going to bankrupt the water department or something similar. So
I'd like to just sort of maybe respond to your concerns. One is the cost of this contract is not going to be passed on to the consumer. So the water rate study is going to be conducted to figure out what does the plant and its operation under normal conditions with, being fully staffed, not through the consulting firm. What does it cost to distribute the water, to ensure that we have replacement funds available when filters need replacing and things like that. So I can guarantee that the cost of this short-term effect is not going to be passed on to the consumer. That the number of T3 certified folks in the county is not adequate to meet the needs of the plant, right? There's not a lot of people in the county who are certified in the first place who are also not already working in the water plant somewhere else, the water industry, treatment industry somewhere else. So after weeks and weeks of trying to advertise and call people and ask city managers if they had any part-time from other municipalities, folks who were willing to work for us, none rose to the occasion. And so in response to the state water board's assertion that we cannot operate without adequate licensed individuals, we had to pursue this firm. So yes, it's a hard pill to swallow. And I guarantee that the fines for not having licensed T3 operators from the state is going to be much more significant than what we're paying for this. So hopefully that answers your question in an authentic way. Paul, I see your hand is up.
It sounds like the town is between a rock and a hard place, so to speak, and we can't go back. But if we could, if Ryan was given some notice, and I assume he's still in the business of monitoring a water plant,
nope.
I would have tried to negotiate giving him a substantial raise. But
we have tried to entice Ryan to come back, and you have to respect an individual's wish to change their professional trajectory. So Ryan is not interested in working for the city.
Okay, well, you tried.
And is not working in water either.
He's not. Okay, he's changed.
Different path altogether.
Okay, I didn't know. Okay, thank you.
We tried donuts and we tried all kinds of things. Other questions, comments from, I see Dave Hankins' camera came on. Go ahead, Dave.
Thank you. Yeah, just a quick comment, because it seems as if this is the appropriate time to make it. I'm watching, the water operation over the years in the city of Trinidad. I've been struck by how there really has not been the equivalent of what we have in the West Haven Community Services District, which is a general manager. Like you've been using the term chief operator. Well, that's very much a sort of employment label and something that the state requires, but it doesn't give a good indication of what the actual responsibilities are. And I would just urge you, while you're still, trying to seek someone to be your lead operator, that you ought to consider thinking of the position as something that provides broader direction to your water system for the future. Like with the West Haven district, right? We basically have someone who used to work for your system, Paul Rosenblatt, who's been terrific. He's a visionary. He thinks ahead for the future, where he thinks our community needs to be with respect to water, and he goes out and he finds grant money for us, and it's just such a neat thing. It puts the board, our board, analogous to the city council, in the position of responding to suggestions that come from the individual who is responsible for managing the water system. And anyway, I didn't know when would be the most appropriate time to say something like this, but I think it's now, because either you create that kind of position and think it through now, or it never happens. In other words, instead of having someone who basically just works for you and is in charge of operating the treatment plant, the lead responsibility for that. Instead, you think you want to hire someone who's responsible for thinking through the future of your water system and, trying to provide adequate supply and adequate quality of water, for the duration. And it's a very different kind of position in terms of how the responsibilities are advertised. And a final note is I was struck, attending a lot of Trinidad meetings having to do with water. Almost never was there a word spoken from the people that operate your water system. And I think there's something wrong with that. I mean, ideas, often really good ones, come from the people that are actually in charge of operating these systems and making things run. Anyway, that was the only comment that I wanted to make. But I understand, by the way, the need to hire an interim engineer. That's state imposed. You have to have a T3 person to operate your system and to certify, the various things that have to be sent to the state. That's just the way it is. And that may have changed, Bryce, from the way that it once was.
Thank you, Mr. Hankin.
Just
Other comments from the general public?
a tiny one.
Tiny one. Go ahead, Paula. You're on mute, Paula.
I actually spoke to Ryan before he quit several times, and I asked him why he didn't speak to the council or publicly about how he felt the water system should be improved. And he very clearly wanted to hook up the Humboldt Bay Municipal Water District and very clearly said that the council knew what he thought and knew what his opinions were. And you find that with a lot of employees, that they don't want to speak publicly or to their bosses. That's all.
All right. Other comments about this agenda item? All right, bringing it back to the council then. We have heard comments about the contract with Coleman Engineering to provide qualified certified chief water treatment plant utility operations for the city of Trinidad. Do we have a motion regarding this agenda item?
I will move that we approve contract with Coleman Engineering to provide qualified and certified chief water treatment plant utility operators for the city of Trinidad.
Second that.
All right, we have a first and then we have a second. Mr. Adams, can you do a roll call vote, please?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. We have a first by Councilmember West and a second by Grover to approve the contract as submitted in the meeting packet. We'll go with Councilmember West.
Yes.
Grover.
Yes.
Kelly.
Aye.
Mayor Ladwig.
Yes.
Passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. And thank you for that discussion and for your comments, folks. This is not a situation that we want to be in. And this is an attempt to get us back on solid ground. Sorry, not back on solid ground, onto new solid ground. So definitely heard your comments about the sort of the future direction of the water plant. At this point, we will move to item from the consent, approved contract with Best Krieger for supplemental legal advice in connection to issues involving local Native American tribes. We have both city manager and our city attorney to weigh in on this item. So Eli or Russ, I'm not sure who wishes to start.
I will turn it over to Russ because he is our legal counsel and this is a firm that works with him. So I'll turn it over to Russ.
Thank you. And on behalf of council, what we're seeking to do in this circumstance is to have on retention a law firm that specializes in matters of Indian law, trust land dedications, tribal governance issues, basically on a retention basis. So they don't have an active role for the city. We will only consult with them on a limited basis as issues arise. Anyway, so this firm that is now affiliated with Best and Krieger, they specialize in Indian law matters. That is the sole substance of their practice. And, it's akin to, consulting with a doctor that specializes in some area of medicine. So anyway, we wanted to have somebody on board that we, on behalf of the city attorney, can consult with on occasion, and the city as well, as issues related to Indian law develop from time to time. But again, they don't have any ongoing role or active role with the city, but they will be available to answer Indian law inquiries if and when those arise.
Thank you very much, Russ. So again, this is a request to, in essence, add to our legal resources. And at this point, I'll open it up to the council for questions for either Eli or Russ on this item. Mr. West?
I just would like to know, Russ, if we owe them any money if we don't use them.
No, they work on an hourly basis, so they have to be assigned a project before we incur a debt or liability.
Thank you.
Other questions from our council?
More of a comment, just that the review, because a lot of the comments were like, we're spending because what we just found out with the water and stuff, it seems like the city's hemorrhaging money here, but I just wanted to assure people that there was a specialty thing here. Is the only reason that they're asking for their advice, because they have a special talent in something specifically that we've been struggling with a city, with the tribal entities around it for a long time. So we're trying to do it as quickly, as efficiently as possible, because that's ultimately going to save money.
Thank you for that comment. Ms. Kelly, anything, just as I'm going around the robin here? Okay. At this point, I'd like to open it up for public comment or questions.
This is Mike Morgan. I guess I'll go. I can't see if anybody else is going to go, so I apologize for jumping in.
Go ahead.
I just have a question for the attorney. What's the fee structure if we do use them? Do they have do you get a cut of it, or do we just bill them separately as a separate business? They'll have their own invoice. What happens with that?
Yeah, certainly I can answer that question. So no, they will be separately retained by the city. So they will independently bill the city for their time and their services. Our office will have no involvement with their invoicing or any payment. There's no fees sharing structure or anything of that nature.
Thank you. And then if you are going to use them, then we would have the council approval to use them. You do go to the council first, right?
Well, that's the concept. So on occasion, limited issues related to Indian law may develop. We will have this firm available that the city can consult with them, staff can consult with them. For example, the city planner can consult with them on issues on occasion that may develop. So they will be a professional service available to the city on a retention basis. But again, very limited consult basis that they'll be consulted.
All right.
And in that vein, just to let folks know, when we have our closed session meetings following the Brown Act and following the sort of the limitations for what you can and can cover in open and closed session, our legal discussions are most often, our legal counsel rather is most often asking direction from the council, which direction to go, what to do, what to pursue and whatnot. So that's in essence baked into this process, is that any involvement with legal activities is run through the council. Just want to let the folks know that that's what these closed sessions are for. Other questions, comments from the general public? All right, seeing none, I'll bring it back to council for action regarding contract with Best Krieger for supplemental legal advice.
Do we need to make a motion?
I'm asking for a motion regarding this agenda item. I'm not supposed to tell you what, I'm not saying,
No.
please give me an approval motion or something like that.
No, I understand. Sorry, I just just wanted to make sure I was following. So I can make a motion to go ahead and approve moving forward with Best and Krieger for supplemental legal advice in connections with issues involving the local Native American tribal entities.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a first from Councilmember Kelly, a second from Councilmember West. Mr. Adams, would you please?
Yes, as Councilmember Kelly reported in detail, we have a motion on the table for Ms. Kelly and seconded by West to approve the contract as submitted in the consent agenda and included in the packet. We'll start with Councilmember Kelly.
Aye.
West.
Yes.
Grover.
Aye.
And Ladwig.
Aye.
Passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. I think we're moving on now to our first item that is listed in the agenda, our third now, Resolution 2022-03, recognizing the public service of Tom Davies. And I am trying to find what page on the agenda. If someone has it up, that would be great. I want to read it.
71.
Thank you. Let's see, I'm not seeing that on 71. Here we go. Here we go. Mine has 66, so I'm not sure what I'm looking at. All right, so this is, again, Resolution 2022-03, acknowledging the public service of Tom Davies. I'm going to read the acknowledgement of service, and then we'll open it up for comment. So, whereas Tom Davies has served as Trinidad City Council member from 2011 through 2014, and again from January 2019 through December 2021, whereas Davies served as the City of Trinidad's Trails Advisory Committee chairperson, keeping the council and community engaged in policies and priorities involving one of the city's biggest recreational assets. And whereas Davies attended countless meetings, budget brainstorms, challenging closed sessions, and participated thoughtfully, well studied with careful consideration, always adding balance. And whereas Davies was a champion for open government, kept a close eye on process and fairness, and spoke his mind honestly and respectfully. And whereas Davies shared a common vision that has and continues to attract residents and visitors alike to Trinidad for preserving the community design and character that makes this coastal town unique. And now, therefore, be resolved that the City of Trinidad congratulates and thanks Tom Davies for his years of wholehearted and dedicated service to the citizens of Trinidad and to the future well-being of the community. So that is our resolution. And at this point, I want to open it up for public comment regarding this resolution. Go ahead, Mr. Klompus.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to mention that it was a pleasure working with Mr. Davies. He had a different point of view, often challenging grants and different aspects of the city, wanting to always preserve its quaintness. And I did appreciate Tom's point of view and also his participation, and the acknowledgement is well deserved. And thank you.
Thank you, Richard. And I have to say that the islands off of Virginia look surprisingly similar to the islands off of Trinidad. I'm not sure how that works. You just must be attracted to islands that look like that.
It's persistent memory.
There we go. Other comments from the community or from the council?
I just want to concur with everything you read too. He did keep a real eye on the ball too. He was very good at the finances. He picked up some stuff that, he really had to dig in deep to find. So I appreciated that. And, there's no doubt his intention was the best for, Trinidad continue to be the place it is. Thanks.
Go ahead, Mr. West.
I concur. I said I was really sorry to see Tom leave the council. I think it's been a really strong voice for working and controlling projects that we might have not been as concerned about. So he brought in an interesting viewpoint. Many times he had me look at things in a different way. So I really appreciated that. And I kind of challenged the community to look carefully around our city and see if he can find somebody who may wish to come on the council with some of his points of view so we can keep him at least somewhat close, because he did a good job. So thanks, Tom. You did a great job.
I really appreciate the fact that Cheryl recently attended a sort of this training, right? And what it does is it puts a new set of eyes on what we do. And her opening comments about how Trinidad really sticks to process and really embraces the open government. That's Tom. That's a major part of what he contributed to this city during his time on the council. Recently, I can only assume he did it during his first stint. So I appreciate seeing him around town because he has that I've retired smile to him. And I think he also has that some good stuff happened while I was on the council. So I appreciate his contribution. Other comments from folks? I'm sorry he's not here to be embarrassed by all of our comments, but any other comments that folks would like to share? All right, seeing none, we do need a motion to approve our resolution 2022-03. I make said motion that we approve this resolution.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Sorry, Gabe, I wanted to save you from one. I think it's fairly easy to assume that's unanimous. So thank you very much, folks. At this point, we will move on to our next item, which is discussion decision regarding proposed Trinidad Head trail sign. So we have members of the Trails Committee. We also have Eli to introduce this item.
Thank you. So the Trails Committee had suggested that we replace the existing Trinidad Head sign since it's become worn. So the process was started a little while ago. And as a result, we even had this on our agenda, I believe somewhere around late summer, early fall. Excuse me, my throat may be raspy. So as a result, after that particular council meeting, we found that we still had some input that was requested that we include and give an opportunity to weigh in on. So specifically the Trinidad Rancheria. So subsequently, the Trinidad Rancheria did provide us with their input, and they suggested two further changes to that proposed sign, changing the Churai Trail to Churawa Trail, which is the name of Trinidad Head, Churawa, and to reference the Yurok name for Trinidad Head. So that's the Churawa. And the second thing was to refer to Churai people as Yurok people. I subsequently, after that input, passed that information onto the Churai Ancestral Society and the Yurok tribe and set up a meeting with them to go over the suggested changes by the Trinidad Rancheria. At that meeting, the representatives of both the Yurok tribe and the Churai Ancestral Society felt that the name of the trail should be Churai Trail, since historically that was the name used for the trail. Therefore, it could be referred as Chirai Trail, and as I mentioned, as well as Chirai Trail on Chirawa. So, I think it's probably both. Both would be good, because I think having the fact that it is called Chirawa would be relevant and useful for the public, the general public. Most of our Native community would be quite aware of some of these terms, but visitors from other areas in the US and from other areas around the world that visit Trinidad, I think it would be helpful for them to know this historical context. Secondly, the prior reference to Chirai people has been changed to Yurok people, as well as people of the Chirai village. So those two modifications were made, which would be receptive, I believe, to the input from the Trinidad Rancheria. Additionally, the following statement appears at the bottom of the sign, and that is saying Chirai is a unique Yurok village because the people here speak the most linguistically divergent Yurok dialect. And then attached is a picture of what the sign would look like with the input from everyone, the Trinidad Rancheria, the Chirai Ancestral Society, and the Yurok tribe, as well as the Trinidad Land Trust and the Trinidad Trails Committee. And so staff suggests that the council discuss and approve the sign to replace the existing warrant sign. I will also mention that Carol Vandermeer, I believe, is on the line, and since she was helpful in this process, she can make some comments. And otherwise, I know there's representatives from the Trinidad Rancheria, and I believe from the Chirai Ancestral Society, and possibly the Yurok tribe, so they could all weigh in. But I'll turn it over to Carol if she has any words to add.
Eli, I don't see Carol's name.
Okay, so maybe she's not on now. Okay, yeah. I saw her name before, and I told her that the meeting, that we should get to this agenda item around 6:30. So considering it's 7:30. So anyway, I'll turn it over to the council and then to the public.
Any questions for Eli from the council regarding this item? I'm seeing heads shaking, so we'll open it up to the public for public comment on this item.
Hi,
Ms. Hostler-Thompson.
I have a comment when you're ready.
I'll get to you next, Mike.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Jackie.
Thank you, Mayor. On behalf of Trinidad Rancheria Tribal Council, and also our Vice Chairman, Robert Hempstead, is also on the video, on the Zoom call. The Rancheria Council would like to express their thanks for the extended consultation and continuing the dialogue. And Tribal Council is very happy to see the references from Chirai people to Yurok people. That was very positive. They do not support the change to the Chirai Trail. They prefer Chiraiwa Trail. However, our Tribal Historic Preservation Officer was not able to be on the call tonight to explain that further. So at this time, just noted that there's appreciation for the consultation and the change that was made to Yurok people. However, there is disagreement with changing it to the Chirai Trail. Our TIPO believed that Chiraiwa Trail was indeed more accurate and is not aware of the historical reference. to the trail. And that's for the record. It's not opposing the decision tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Hosser-Carmison. Other comments from the public? Mike, you had an interest in making a comment.
Thank you, I do. I appreciate the sensitivity around this, and sounds like you guys did a lot of work. I appreciate hearing Jackie's voice. I don't know why we don't have a member from the Trinidad speaking. They love to speak about this stuff. I'm a bit concerned. It's calling it the Trinidad Trail, and then throwing in here about the village of Trinidad is a bit confusing. We know where the village is. It's not on the head on all the maps and stuff. It's down below John Frame's house. So it's a little confusing that we've now kind of enlarged the village of Trinidad to be something that historically I don't think it's been, and I could be wrong. I'm glancing out to see the offshore rocks dotting the coastline are part of the Trinidad village. Is that true? I don't think so. I think the village is on a map. We have it as part of the 12.5 acres. It's a historical area, and it's not on rocks out there. So, I'm not going to say anything. I'm voicing my knowledge and experience, and I think it's misleading. Did we call it the Lighthouse Trail before? I'm not sure what it was called before, but this using Yurok Village of Trinidad to imply the city of Trinidad or the head is misleading, and it's not going to be helpful for any tourists that are visiting. The village of Trinidad is not up on the head. It's over there. That's it.
Other comments from the general public? All right, seeing or hearing none, we'll bring it back to council for discussion and possible motion. Jack?
Okay, I certainly want to compliment Carol on the job. I don't know how much of this she did, but I know she was a major part of putting this together. So this is, and I appreciate that we seem to have come to very close to a full agreement. And thank Jackie for letting us keep this the way it is, and maybe we can find a way to add some information in other ways later. But that's a beautiful sign, and I'm very impressed with it. So I want to thank everybody for getting this together.
Yeah, I totally agree. We first looked at the concepts, I think, like a year and a half ago in the Trail Committee, and it's come a long way, and it's great to see the collaboration. So it looks really good.
Yes, I'm encouraged by the by the discourse this evening. And David, do you have a comment?
No, I just concur with what was said.
Okay. At this point, I'd like to entertain a motion regarding this agenda item.
I will move that we accept this Trinidad head trail sign.
And I'll second that motion.
First from West, second from Grover. Mr. Adams, if you please.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have a motion by Councilmember West, seconded by Grover, to accept the proposed latest version of the Trinidad Head trail sign as included in the meeting packet tonight. We'll start with a vote by Councilmember West.
Yes.
Grover.
Yes.
Ladwig.
Yes.
And Kelly.
Yes.
Passes unanimously.
Thank you very much, everyone. And again, for the concerted effort to seek everybody's input. So thank you much. I look forward to seeing the sign up on the head. The next item is a continued discussion decision regarding short-term rental ordinance revisions. As I am an owner of a short-term rental, I'm going to recuse myself and ask Mayor Pro Tem West to take over.
Thank you, Mayor Ladwig. Yeah, we're going to be looking at our short-term rental ordinance that's already been presented. We've got two speakers I know that are ready to talk about it. I believe City Manager Eli Napa and Trevor Parker will be talking about it. So who wants to start?
excuse me, I'll start briefly and turn it over to Trevor. She prepared the agenda item, and because she's our city planner, she worked closely with the Planning Commission since it was the task of the Planning Commission to come up with the revision to the STR ordinance. This is a little bit later than probably it should have been based upon the original ordinance. However, it did allow us the benefit of time where we were able to see and try to live through some of the impacts of the ordinance on our community. Fortunately, as we heard at our STR joint meeting in January with the Planning Commission and the City Council, the report is that for the last couple years, we have had minimal complaints, and as a result, it seems that the ordinance is working fairly well. Throughout the state, STRs have had much more problems, and fortunately, we're able to get it under control. Previous to my starting in 2019, I believe the number of STRs in the city were in the high 30s. Since I've been here since 2019, they've been somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 to around 31 for the most part. Recently, it's dropped closer to 28. I did want to note that the ordinance here has a cap, which we haven't had a cap before. So anyway, I'll turn it over to Trevor. I'll let her go into detail, and then if there's any questions, she can and I can help answer them. So I'll turn it to Trevor.
Thank you, Eli. So I provided mostly the same material as was at the last meeting because you guys didn't get a chance to discuss it very much. One of the reasons for that was to try and get Coastal Commission comments on the proposed amendments. I didn't get official written comments, but I did have some email correspondence with the new district manager in the Arcata office, who was the staff person who reviewed and took the original ordinance through certification process. So she's familiar with it. And at this point, she says it looks all pretty minor to her and can probably be processed as a minor amendment, which is a little bit faster, easier process. So that's good news. I'll point out, Councilmember Davies at the last meeting pointed out a couple of discrepancies in the version of the ordinance that was presented at that meeting and the final adopted ordinance. And so I did since then go through line by line, and I did find 4 places where there were differences. There were phrases missing out of the ordinance that was in the last packet. I'm not quite sure what happened there, but it's all, I added those back in, so it's consistent with the original, the final adopted ordinance, and then it shows the amendments that were recommended by the Planning Commission in track changes in there. I did have a thought since the last the joint meeting with the STR committee and City Council and Planning Commission. There does seem to be interest in the community and trying to encourage more of the home share and resident type STRs. So resident STRs are those where the resident lives most of the year in Trinidad, but may leave for part of the year and rent out their house while they're gone. And then a home share STR is where someone is renting out a room in their house while they are on site during the rental. So, and we don't have any of those licenses in town at the moment. So, that is clearly, there's not as much demand for those. And I don't know whether that's, from renters or from property owners. But one way to encourage more of those might be to loosen the restrictions on those. So that's just one additional thing to think about. And so the resident STRs are currently limited to less than 60 days. So that's less than 2 months. So that could be broadened. And then the home share STRs is limited to 1 bedroom, and that could also be broadened, and that might encourage more of those types of STRs. And then in the rest of the staff report, you saw at the last, I think it was the November meeting, provides a little bit of background on the development of the ordinance. For those who weren't around, there was a lot of time and effort and public input put into that. So I covered a little bit of that. I summarized the Planning Commission review of the ordinance, which focused on recommendations from the STR committee that had been meeting regularly and talking about STR issues. I also provided a little bit of information on caps and numbers of STRs over the years. The Planning Commission looked at these numbers, and some of this information was what went into their recommended changes on the caps. So it provides a little bit of justification and reasoning for that. I provided a little bit of background on complaints and enforcement, since that's clearly one of the primary issues that comes up with the ordinance, and whether the enforcement process is adequate. As we've talked about, we haven't had official complaints, but there might be a couple of reasons for that. Hopefully part of that is that the STRs or guests are behaving themselves, but then also the managers are responding to calls from neighbors quickly and dealing with the complaints internally. And then there's been a few other issues and suggestions that have come up. And then I also, there's been a lot of comments that, STRs are the reason that the city doesn't have volunteers for the Planning Commission and City Council. And I think, it's a much more complicated issue than that. And if you look at the history of the city's population, STRs, you can see that. So I provided a little bit of background on that. In terms of the amendments that were made to the ordinance, I'll just quickly go through them. One of the primary ones was a definition of meet and greet. So that's where the local contact person has to meet in person with the guests to go over the rules and have them sign the good neighbor contract. And so we've formalized that with a definition. We also defined property manager so that we don't have to say property manager or owner or local contact person throughout the document. Property manager includes any and all of those. Oh, and then one additional suggestion from the Coastal Commission staff person was not to use the acronym LCP for local contact person, because LCP is, for the Coastal Commission, is so commonly used for local coastal program. So it's already sort of, that acronym is taken already. And I would suggest then just spelling it out in the ordinance rather than using an acronym. As we go through the ordinance, other changes. So the other big change was to add a citywide cap of 32 STRs. So in the current ordinance, there is a cap in the 2 residential zones. There's a cap for the UR zone and a cap in the SR zone, and no citywide cap and no caps in other zones. And the idea was to try and encourage STRs in the PD and non-residential, primarily residential neighborhoods. And so we're leaving that in place, no caps in other zones, but a citywide cap of 32 so that things, not all the PD properties or something become STRs. There was also a slight alteration of reducing the cap in the UR zone by 1. That's clearly where the highest demand for STRs is. There's currently a wait list. So there are some licenses available under the both the current and the proposed cap, but there is no wait list in the SR zone. And we did add 1 additional STR for the SR zone to balance the reduction from the UR zone. We also expanded the limitation on the number of licenses that can be held by any one person. So previously, it was only in the UR, there was only a limitation within the UR and SR zones. And so we've expanded that so that, one person can't just own a bunch of STRs in the city. So that's limited to 2 licenses with only 1 in the residential zones. We also, clarified the meet and greet with the definitions of the requirements for that. We also expanded the prohibition on adjacent STRs to all zones. Previously, that was just in the UR zone that you couldn't have an adjacent STR. So we expanded that restriction. And then a few changes were made in the enforcement section. So a lot of the STR committee recommendations can be implemented administratively, but I did make a few clarifications, particularly in terms of who is responsible for collecting and submitting fines for any violations. So that's really up to the property manager. And then, if they can take that out of the security deposit or however they want to collect that from the occupants. But it's really the property manager needs to be responsible for getting that to the city. I also clarified that failure to report complaints that are dealt with quickly. So local contact person gets a complaint, they have to respond within 30 minutes, and they're supposed to also let the city know that complaint occurred and how it was resolved. But that might not be getting followed through with. So I clarified that it could be a violation if they don't report those and the city finds out. So that's a summary of the changes to the ordinance that were recommended by the Planning Commission.
Thank you, Trevor. I just have to add this, that years ago, Jim Baker and I worked on one of the original forms of this, and we spent a couple of years, we worked hard, it was awful, and we finally got it put together. So I just want to compliment Trevor, because this is amazing how fast you work on this and get things back to us. So I'm very impressed. So thank you very much. Before I go to the council, the city manager have any other comments, or are we ready to go?
Yeah, I would like to weigh in. I think the recommendation that Trevor threw out there, and I'm not necessarily saying that it was a recommendation, but a possible approach, where she said because of the comments received at the joint meeting with the STR, the council, and the Planning Commission regarding home share, and she also mentioned the resident STRs. Those restrictions, which currently have a 60-day limit for resident STRs and a 1-bedroom limit for home share, I believe that we should possibly consider lifting both of those, and so that would help encourage resident STRs and home share STRs, where the resident ones wouldn't be limited to 60 days and the home share ones wouldn't be limited to 1 bedroom.
I guess we can consider that in what our discussion is. So I will open this up to the rest of the council. Anyone have questions or want to respond to the city manager's idea?
Yeah, I do encourage those ideas too, but I thought that we were going to kind of accept it in certain versions and then change it and revote because of public consideration to be aware of the changes that we're making, or did I miss part of the presentation?
I would suggest that if you're going to add changes, I don't think this is set up for a first reading necessarily tonight, because I figured there would be some discussion and some potential changes. So okay. If you want to add or loosen those restrictions, I would say I would make those changes and they would be included in the track changes version next month with all the recommended changes.
Okay, so yeah, okay, I'm on the right page then. Thanks.
Cheryl, yes.
So, obviously, having been on the Planning Commission, and we went through this quite a few times, I'm okay with the changes that were made by the Planning Commission. So it makes sense to me. We did like the cap. We liked the idea of there was a lot of discussion about balance in the community, allowing for business interests. Obviously, that's important, and from an economic standpoint, while at the same time preserving kind of that community look and feel. So that was discussed. I guess I have a question about loosening the sort of, I guess, restrictions on resident STR and home share. So are we essentially saying if we might end up with more, for example, STRs in urban residential than we had set aside with the cap? Because I think that would be, certainly something people would have an opinion about.
Yes. So currently in the ordinance, there is a cap of, I believe, 6 resident STRs in the UR zone, but no caps in other zones and no caps on home share STRs. I think the home share STRs are the preferred STR because the owner or resident is on site while it's being rented. So that really should, eliminate parties and noise and, those kind of problems that might come along with an STR. So there was no cap put on those in the ordinance, but that could certainly be considered as part of, changing the restrictions on them.
Yeah. I mean, I think at this point, I'm in that camp of it's pretty good the way it is. And I'm pretty comfortable with it the way it is at this point, but that's just my thought.
Well, I will add that I agree with Cheryl. It's, although I think that's something we need to work on. I think we've got a number of things that have come up from the information you gave us that I really think is important to look at. But I really like to have some time to go back and consider this and also get it back through the Planning Commission and find out, just to look at it more carefully. We'll be reviewing this in 2 years. And I would like to see, there's a number of things that came up throughout this that we'd like to look ahead to. And so I agree that I think, and I like the idea of some of the ideas. I'm not sure I want to add more rooms to for an STR. So I'm not sure I can go with that, but I'd like to think about it, how it be presented. I too think this is a great job, and I think, but I don't think I'd like to go back and too much changing right now. I'd like to get that first reading. Is there anything else that either any of the council men or women would like to add? Okay, so let's go to public comment. So please, again, show yourself. You can put up your hand or let me know. We'll listen to public comment. Anybody want to say anything?
I have a question. I haven't looked at the definition of an STR that you guys have changed. If you changed it, was it updated?
The definition of an STR was not updated, so it excludes bed and breakfast.
All right. Well, if it's a good opportunity to update it, considering the litigation I'm involved with and the miscalling of my business consistently, I would encourage them to use the current California law definition of an STR, which completely keeps hotels, motels, bed and breakfast, and inns separate and states so. And I think our city definition should match the state definition and the county definition. And with that being said, I'd be happy to give it to you if you can't find it, but I'm sure you know where it is. All right, thank you. I know it's a lot of work. I don't agree with the cap on any of these. I don't know what our peak vacation rental housing stock was in the time I've been here. But I have a very different viewpoint. I think people should be able to do what they want with their property responsibly. I love vacation rentals. They're the best properties we have in town as far as maintenance goes and getting problems answered quickly if we need to. I've had many of them around me. I have a couple right now. So there is another opinion here. It doesn't seem to be getting expressed. And that's all I have to say for right now. I'll take a look at it again. And I appreciate the work you've done on it, Trevor. And Councilmember West, if you're working on it, thank you too.
Trevor, could you just briefly explain, do we have that? Are we working in the same difference with the B&B and the STRs, or is there something different about our policy from others?
Not that I know of, and I'm not sure exactly what state definition Mike is referring to. I don't think we've had any issues with our current definition. We could certainly look at other definitions. This one has been, I'm sure it was taken from somebody else. We might have modified it to some degree, but it does seem to be working. It does define a dwelling, because that was a little bit unclear in our current ordinance. And then an STR is defined as a dwelling, so it wouldn't include hotels and motels and inns. And then we specifically excluded the bed and breakfast, or any bed and breakfast, because that would be a dwelling otherwise. So, but is not part of the STR ordinance. So yeah, I'm not sure I see a need to change it at this point, but like you mentioned, Jack, we will be reviewing this again in the future periodically. It does say within 2 years and then as needed after that. So it's not necessarily a 2-year deadline again, but as we could start reviewing it again tomorrow, and keep a list of additional changes, because the longer this waits to get to the Coastal Commission, the longer it'll take to get certified and that cap be in place. So it might be good to get this amendment through and have it be minor, and then maybe look at some additional changes in the future.
Thank you. Does anybody in the community want to add any information else? So put your hand up or say something so we know you'd like to speak.
I have a general question for you guys. Mike Morgan again. In my research, I've been reading about short-term rentals in California and about taxing them in cities, and about the overburdensome regulations individual cities are placing on them to get their agendas put through. And Trevor, you may know about this, but I don't have the actual bill that's working its way through our court legislature right now, state legislature. SB 555 or something like that. And as I understand it, it's a way for the city to allow the state to collect TOT on the short-term rentals, because they're regulated completely separately from hotels, bed and breakfast, and motels. And it kind of takes it away and makes it a little more fair, and it takes a little pressure off the city. So I'll research that a little bit, but have you heard about that at all, that assembly bill?
I have not heard of that.
All right, well, I'll get you that information then, and I won't take any more of the council's time at the moment.
Thank you. All right, Sherry. Sherry Provolt, please.
Thank you. Trevor, maybe I don't see it I appreciate you just explaining a little bit. So there's 32 licenses that will be allowed. Is the home share and the other one that was called where it was short?
The resident STR?
Yeah. Are those also the same application process? And do they make up part of the 32 licenses?
They do not. So right now, home shares are basically, home share STRs are defined in this ordinance and basically regulated as just a home occupation. It doesn't require a special license or permit or anything like that. A resident STR would require the same application process, and there is a cap of 6 of those but just in the UR zone, the urban residential zone, the denser residential part of town.
Okay.
And that cap of 6 is separate from the cap of 32 for the full-time STRs.
And separate from the 18.
No, the 18 is included within the 32. The max of 18 full-time STRs in the UR zone is included in the citywide cap of 32.
Right.
I think she means included with the 6.
Right. So you have 18 in the UR zone, right?
Yes, the 6 resident STRs is separate from the cap of 18.
Okay, so in the UR zone, you could have 24.
Yes, but the 6 currently can only be rented for less than 60 days a year.
Right. Yes. Okay. That's what I was trying to wrap my head around. Thank you so much. And again, appreciate the work that was done on this. No, it's complicated. Oh, I think that's all right now. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anybody else who would like to make a comment? Aaron, do you want to say something?
Yeah. Hey, everybody. Just wanted to say thanks for everybody's time. Speaking both as a resident and a member of the Planning Commission, just echoing Cheryl's sentiment that a lot of work's been done on this. And I guess I would just encourage the council tonight to consider moving on this. We're never going to have a document that's perfect and satisfies everybody. But I think the fact that we've finally reviewed this as a jurisdiction is huge, and that we are committed to doing it ongoing in a timely fashion is huge. The short few years I've been in town, this has been a constant issue that we haven't gotten to, and I'm sure it's a load off of everybody else's plate that's been dealing with it far longer than I have. So that's really all I have. Thanks.
Is there anybody else who would like? Okay, I haven't seen anybody, so I'm going to first of all thank the Planning Commission and the STR committee, and especially Dick Bruce, who put a lot of work into this. So if you get a chance, thank them for what they've done. And we're ready to bring it back to council. And if there's no other comments, why don't we have a motion?
I'd like to make the motion, but I don't have the packet in front. If somebody has it open so they can read it,
I can read it to you, and you can just agree. I guess it says to accept the short-term rental ordinance revisions.
Okay, yeah. I'd like to make a motion that we accept the short-term rental ordinance revisions for now.
And we will bring this back for first reading at the next meeting.
Under the assumption we will bring it back for the first reading by the next meeting in March.
Cheryl, do you want to make
a
second?
Second that.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. So Dave, this is up to you now.
Thank you. Stand by for just a second. I'm finishing the motion, writing it down. Okay, so we have a motion by Councilmember Grover, seconded by Kelly, to accept the STR ordinance revisions as presented and bring it back for a first reading in March. And with that, as long as I got that motion correct, we'll start with Councilmember Grover.
Aye.
Kelly?
Aye.
West?
Yes.
And Mayor Ladwig is recused, so that is a passing of the ordinance 3-0 to 1.
All right, thank you. We will move on to the next item, and I think we'll have Mayor Ladwig back again.
All right, thanks, Jack, for taking over. I appreciate that. And discussion, presentation brainstorming session regarding per capita grant projects to improve city park and recreation opportunities. Eli, and I imagine Trevor.
And Becky.
And Becky.
Let me see if she's here.
Becky is here.
Yeah, Becky's here. So, Yeah, she can take it over. This is regarding a per capita grant dealing with parks. So I'll turn it over to Becky.
Thank you. So this grant opportunity has been brought forward to the council several times, and the timeline for getting the projects accepted by state parks and then completed is getting shorter. So, and this is not, this is because state parks had a pause of this program. And so it became a shorter timeline. But what we would like to do tonight is hear from council and hear from the public possible ideas for this grant allocation. So there's a certain amount, as it says in this agenda item, the report, there's a certain amount of money available, and currently there's about 120,000 remaining. The state parks has accepted the first application, which is to work on the tennis courts to improve it, to add pickleball opportunities. And so I'm just, unless there's questions, I'm just gonna say that we're here to listen to ideas, and not all of them will probably be eligible or practical or logistically feasible for this particular grant opportunity, but they will all be recorded and on our list of possible projects for further review. And when we have a list coming out of this meeting, we can do further homework to determine if they're eligible and understand what kind of planning and permitting would be necessary, and just see if it could fit into the timeline and the different constraints on this. But it's a great opportunity, especially for some smaller projects.
And any other input from Eli, Trevor? Okay, not seeing any. Okay, questions for Becky in terms of, I imagine, I see in the packet the type of project, that must be accessible, meet CEQA requirements, but not a lengthy CEQA process. Has to be implemented by the end of next year, December 31st, 23, recreational purposes, either acquisition or development, and must be accessible with an accessible path of travel to the project. So those are the concerns that or the parameters that we need to consider. So is that go ahead, Becky.
So I just wanted to briefly talk about the accessibility. So we have trails in town that could not be considered accessible. We can still improve those trails. It's if it's possible to provide accessibility, we need to. So it's kind of within reason. So if we were working on a trail that could not be accessible, that wouldn't necessarily mean it wasn't eligible.
Okay.
And I'll just add clarification to that too, that it has to be an improvement, right, Becky? It can't be maintenance. So
correct. Or a repair.
Yeah, so trail repair unfortunately doesn't qualify. A trail improvement could. Mm-hmm. So that's just clarify that.
Okay. It would have to be brought to a state that's better than it was originally.
And so back in sometime in the past, I can't remember now, the Trails Committee recommended that the first flight of steps from the parking lot up the head, that's an improvement, right? That's that would be a possible type of expenditure for this sort of money, or no?
So I think that would be, we could think about how it could be, if it's just like simply replacing the stairs that are there. I don't know that that would be eligible, but if there was some way that we could improve it beyond its original state, I think that would be eligible.
Okay.
And Trevor is going to be the one who's going to tell us the planning and permitting needs and what, so we'll have to do research, but if I'm writing down ideas that I hear, so I will, let people continue to talk.
Yeah, so let's get some, Jack, we'll start with you and then just get some ideas thrown out.
One of the things that's come up regularly is what to do about the base of the Axel Lindgren Trail. And would that be something if we were to say we're going to try to somehow make that a trail that will be more consistent in bad weather and hold up better? Would that be a possibility if we were interested in that?
I think it would. There's currently, I don't know how long the stairs have been gone, but I think that probably
I'm not talking
be something we could consider.
I wouldn't call it a maintenance issue. We do have the maintenance issue, but if we were to try to discover a way that if we all worked together and came up with a plan that everybody agreed on, and that might be a possibility. So I would like to consider that. And my other question for Becky is that, I've gone through this and I kind of thought there'd be more time. Is this something we can, if we get information, we find something we'd like to do, how do we get it to you? Or do we just, is this something we can continue to get to later on and not have to do it tonight?
Yes, certainly. I think, I don't know, I've been sort of trying to encourage the council to think about projects for a few different times. You've heard about this, but at our staff meeting, we thought, well, maybe if we have a brainstorming session, that would sort of stimulate a conversation about it, and maybe get people thinking. We can propose projects until we've used all our money up. And it could be, like say, at the end of the year, we say, okay, well, we only have 1 year to actually complete the project. Like if it's December next, at the end of this year, we would have to complete the project in a year, but certainly we can continue to think about projects.
So how would if the general public found out that they had something in mind, but they didn't bring it tonight, what's the best route to get it to you?
I would recommend that they send the idea to the city clerk, and they could include me in that, or probably to any one of the council members. I think as long as people forward it to me to kind of do the kind of primary screening of the project, and not that they would, just because it doesn't meet the needs of this grant does not mean it's not a valuable project. So it's not like we're going to discard a project if it doesn't work for this grant. So I would love to hear all ideas.
Thank you.
Mr. Heikkinen and then Ms. Kelly.
Oh, thanks. So I don't know if this would qualify, but I'm on the Trails Committee. But one of the things we have obviously a beautiful trail system, but we lack a cohesive, consistent signage and mapping system within Trinidad and the greater area. I personally, when we've talked about it at the Trails Committee, it's a big task, and it needs, in my opinion, professional help to get that accomplished, to partner with all the interested parties, because the trails are, on different properties owned by the Land Trust and different other entities. So I think this would be a great opportunity. It's a good chunk of money, and I think that would be, not just maintenance or repair, but an improvement to the existing thing. So that'd be my suggestion.
Okay, and I actually have spoken with the grant manager about to see if comprehensive signage of trails would be an eligible project, and they said as long as it's implemented and the signs are put in, it would be.
They must know
As
us.
opposed to a plan.
They must know Trinidad. Miss Kelly.
So that, Mr. Heikkinen covered exactly what I was going to say, which was, getting some trail signage, maybe with smart tags, that was brought up by, I think, Zach in the trail committee a couple of years ago, and could be kind of cool. The idea of pickleball court, pickleball is getting super popular. I think it's a great sport for kids as well. So I love that it's right across from the school. I don't know if this could be covered, but maybe is there a way to do sort of like classes or a pickleball lending, library for kids so they can get the equipment, you know what I mean? Like, maybe enhance what we're doing anyway with some of that money, I guess. Just brainstorming. I thought that might be nice.
Yes, I'll write
down. That's all I have at the moment.
Okay, I will write down the programs. Programs are not covered under this opportunity, but there may be other places. I will see if equipment could be an eligible expense. I would think it would be.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah, so that the kids could come over and maybe check out some gear and or the non-kids.
Right.
Thanks.
Other thoughts, brainstorming ideas? Mr. Madrone.
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Mayor and everybody else. Great opportunity. Thank you, Becky, for bringing this forward. The trail at the bottom of the trail, the Axel Lindgren Trail, definitely needs help. And I'm glad to hear this particular program would help with that. And, I've designed a number of treatments there that I've given to your city managers in the past, and I'm more than willing to share those designs with you for submittal in your grant request or your project approval request. Just the basic concept is every winter, very large logs float into the beach and get deposited down there near the bottom of the trail. I'm talking, 2 foot, 3 foot diameter redwood logs. And those are ideal pieces. They're transitory, and they're ideal pieces along with a small amount of rock and other aspects to rebuild the bottom of that trail with something that would stand up to the waves. That was the problem with the previous approach with what's called a cable ladder with cable and round fence posts, put together with clamps. Those always erode with high water, storm surge, things like that, versus a reinforced, stabilized bank with willow on the sides and using large logs and small rocks and things, using the CCCs or some other nice labor force, because currently there's no road access down there. So whatever you do, you have to get the materials to the site. And that's a big part of why nothing's ever been done. At any rate, short form, happy to work with you, your planners and others, provide those designs to get that done. And over on the Trinidad Head Trail, I actually built that piece too. Many of you know I've been involved in building a lot of the trails around Trinidad. And that one does need a rebuild. It's been some 20, 25 years since we built what's there, and things wear out. And you could add to it little pullouts with little benches to increase the view, opportunities for people walking up the trail. It provides a place to step off the trail, while you're waiting for other people to pass. So those are ways to improve what you have there that also would probably qualify. Very easy, simple designs. Anyway, good on you guys for trying to not only maintain, but improve these wonderful assets we have in town. Let me know how I can help. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Other ideas? And just to remind folks, if you do have an idea, or if you run across someone who does want to share their thoughts, please email city clerk and our city clerk or a counselor, or stop in. Let us know what your thoughts are.
And
go ahead, David.
Yeah, I was just gonna make a suggestion like that too. When we accumulate some ideas, maybe hold a special meeting, and then we can decide which ones are viable to be implemented.
And I think what Becky's asking for is that we get enough of those ideas so she can vet them, and then we can, right? And then we can kind of have a, like, these are the ideas that are eligible, right? So keep those ideas coming. But Becky, you wanted to say something?
Yes, I just wanted to throw out another idea that may stimulate some more thoughts. And I believe this was mentioned by another staff member, that bicycle parking facilities or lockers to accommodate bicyclists who come to town could be the type of project that would be fairly simple and quick. I mean, relatively speaking. And so if this can, maybe prompt some other thoughts about walking, bicycling, other types of recreation.
Very good. How about one last call for ideas, and then we'll move on. Go ahead, Eli.
Yeah, I wanted to mention one idea that I had brought forward before, and in the fact that may take too much time and may not be done in time because of CEQA, would be the Vista Points. So we had talked about Vista Points as part of the Caltrans project. And since that Caltrans project was turned down, I thought, I know I had gotten very good buy-in from the Cherokee Ancestral Society. They thought it was a great idea to have a couple Vista Points. So, where people can enjoy the beauty of the bay. And so that might be an option that could be considered for other similar grants if timing doesn't work for this one, that's my understanding.
All right, thank you. All right, last call for some ideas. All right, thank you for the discussion, and thank you, Becky, for keeping this on our radar. Appreciate it. Our next item is discussion decision regarding first reading of Ordinance 2022-01, our first ordinance of the year, amending the requirements for election of the chair of the Planning Commission. Trevor, I imagine you would like to brief us on this.
Yeah, I'm trying to scroll through the grant guidelines here to get to my staff report. It wasn't a very long staff report, though. Maybe I don't need it. So you may recall last year is about a year ago, the Planning Commission made a recommendation to the City Council to amend let's see, section 2.20.070 of the municipal code that deals with election of the chair of the Planning Commission. It requires that someone can't be chair twice, basically, unless everybody has had a turn. And we have struggled at times over the years with a lack of a full planning commission and turnover on the planning commission, so that we mostly have new members. And so that section then requires someone who's relatively new and maybe uncomfortable in that position to be elected as chair, rather than someone who has experience in that position. And I'm not quite sure the reasoning of it. It's nice to have some turnover and give everybody a chance, but I'm not sure I see the advantage of it. There's not a similar requirement for the mayor or anything like that. So the Planning Commission made that recommendation. We brought it to the City Council. The City Council concurred and directed staff to bring an amendment back for City Council approval. I believe we were talking about maybe water lines at the time. And so that bringing that back, that amendment got overlooked. But now here we're in the position of losing our Planning Commission chair and having to elect a new chair. So we're in this position again. So it came up again. And so I have proposed an amendment to remove that language that you can't be chair twice. And I made it similar to election of a mayor, where they can also be removed by election of the planning commission. And so it's a pretty simple amendment. And the track changes. The track changes version unfortunately does not show the language that was removed. That's kind of a product of converting Word documents to PDF, unfortunately. I can pull it up real quick just to read you the language that's being deleted.
The version I see in the packet, Trevor, does have deleted on a rotating basis so that no individual may serve a second term.
Okay. Okay. I didn't even read the note. Oh, yes. Okay. No, that works. That's in there. Thank you.
Okay. I was like, I'm pretty sure I see what you're talking about, but thank you for confirming.
Yes, thank you.
So basically, the chair of the planning commission shall be elected to a 2-year term unless removed by a majority vote of the commission.
Yep.
Okay. And at this point, the recommended action is to receive the first this kind of stuff I always have to check on procedure. What we're doing is we're accepting the first reading if that's what you're asking us to do.
Yes.
Okay. I just want to. Okay. So any questions, comments for Trevor regarding this agenda item? Any comment from the public regarding this agenda item? All right.
Yes, I have one. Mike Morgan.
Go ahead.
As a former councilman, chairman, I agree with Trevor. There shouldn't be any 1-term, 2-term stuff. I think that it should be encouraged to be transferred amongst the people. It's really good to give experience to someone after they've had a few years on the planning commission or the council. And Eureka, I know they just rotate the mayorship. And I've always thought that was a really good way to do it so that it's not based on some majority and control. So I'm glad to see they're addressing it. Sorry we lost our council member, but it looks like we've got a good council member. We lost our chairman. And I look forward to working with Councilman Kelly. And I hope we can find a council chairman for the planning commission and some more planning commissioners.
All right, thank you much. Any other comments regarding this agenda item? All right, hearing and seeing none. Do we have a motion to approve the first reading of ordinance 2022-01?
I will move that we conduct this ordinance 2022-01 for the first reading, amending the requirements for election of the chair of the planning commission.
Then in that case, I will second that.
We have a first from West and a second from Kelly. Mr. Adams.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. So we've got, we'll do this by the book. We've got a first by Councilmember West, second by Councilmember Kelly to waive the full reading of ordinance 2022-01 and read by title only, which states an ordinance of the city of Trinidad amending section 2.20.070 of title 2 of the Trinidad Municipal Code relating to the election of the planning commission chair. And we will read we'll have the first reading and start with Councilmember West.
Yes.
Kelly.
Aye.
Grover. I know you want to say yes.
Yes.
There he is. Okay. And Mayor Ladwig.
Yes, please.
Okay, we have a passed unanimously.
Thank you very much. All right, folks, our last agenda item for this evening is to discuss and decide regarding appointment to fill the vacant resident member to the Trinidad Trails Advisory Committee. We have 2 letters of interest. Let me make sure I'm in the right place. we have a letter of interest from, so we have a resignation that we accepted last meeting from Gail, and now we have a letter of interest from Anita Thompson and from Karen Manaxis. I hope I got that name correct. We have, I see Karen here. I do not see Anita at this point. So at this point, council, I would like to get your direction. We chose for the city council position to table it until both members were available for input. What say you for this item, since we have one of two folks who submitted a letter present?
Yeah, I concur. Then we'll just do it all at once at our special meeting. Is that what you're driving at?
Yes, I mean, I'm asking for direction to be consistent with the action that we took on the council. Do we want to do that with this appointment of someone to the Trails Committee?
So are you looking for a motion to table it till we do our special meeting?
I'm just looking for direction to make sure that we're
That's the direction I'm sending you.
Jack has a comment, and then I may be about to say the same thing. So go ahead, Jack.
We have a Trails Committee meeting coming up right away. You know, I would like to see if we could fill that immediately. I have no problem with making a choice right now. So Cheryl, I'll let you go.
I think that's what I was going to say, and I have the benefit of having reached out to both Anita and Karen, thinking that we had two positions available. So both of them were willing to put their hat. They're both would be wonderful choices. They were both willing to put their names in the hat. And it was my error that there's only one position, and I reached out to two people. It's an unusual situation for us to have, and so I'm thrilled that we have both of them interested in this. So I don't know whether we have an option. I know changing the resolution to make more citizens, to say that we would have 3 general representatives would be probably too complicated. Maybe we have one of them as a, I don't know, Jack, maybe you have an idea.
Well, I do have an idea. We have 2 people who I think would be great to be on the committee, but we have an open meeting. So we're going to pick one, and the other one is absolutely open. We're free to come in and come to our meetings and be part of, at least part of the whole process. So we can get in, you can get in there and give some ideas. And I appreciate Cheryl for being an over recruiter. I think that's great that she's out there trying. So that's nice. Mayor Ladwig, can I make a suggestion as to who to choose at this point, or you want to let everybody talk first?
I'm just looking for direction from the council to see how we want to proceed. It sounds like we have a majority of 2. I haven't weighed in. A majority of 2 who want to continue with the process. So I'm happy either way. I mean, this is such an unusual problem to have that I'm just really unfamiliar territory. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask, since Karen is here, if she wants to just share a little bit about her interest in joining the Trails Committee. We do have in our packet communications from both Anita and from Karen. But Karen, in essence, this is my way of dealing with the guilt of making you stick to a meeting for hours and hours and hours. And so I want to give you the chance to speak. So please share your comments.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to be here. And I am a resident of Trinidad, of course, and I use the trails very regularly for recreation and also just commute. It's my only way to, other than walking on scenic or riding my bike on scenic, my only way to get from my home into the town and into the school is using the trails. And it's important to me that they're welcoming to the community as a whole and accessible and are functioning as they're supposed to. And we live in a beautiful area, and I feel like the public should have access to it. My kids all attend. I have 3 children. They all attend Trinidad School, and we use the trails to get to school, for example. So we use the trails to get to the store. And so that's why I'm interested in
Great. Thank you very
participating in the
much.
process. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So at this point, let's maybe bring some public comment in regarding the two folks. If anyone has any public comment on the Trails Committee, the appointment of either Karen or Anita to the Trails Committee. All right, seeing none, bring it back to the council for recommended action.
Well, I'm willing to start. I appreciate Karen being here. I sort of made up my mind when I came in here that the idea was going to be simple, is that it looked like Anita had put her name in there quite a bit before Karen. So I was just going to say simply, let's bring Anita aboard. But the other problem is that Karen's here and Anita's not. So I would still probably nominate Anita just because I think she got her name in first, and it's not anything else. I don't know who would be better or anything, just who had the name in there first. So I'll start with that and let the other members help me out.
All right. So I would choose either because I think they're both fabulous. And I know Anita wanted to join the meeting tonight. She maybe something came up. So I guess I'm going to do exactly the same thing as Jack. I would love to have both of them, but I'm going to go with the person who put their name in first. And I owe Karen a big glass of whatever beverage she would like to enjoy.
David? Yep, you're up, Dave.
Well, my computer wouldn't unmute for a moment, so now I'm with you. So I'm probably in the camp too. I believe I'm sure they're both very qualified, but I do already know Anita too, so not to conflict and make this some big thing. I'm gonna say her too. Then that way we'll move on with this. And I would definitely encourage Karen to participate in the meetings because your voice will definitely be heard. They're not big meetings, so everybody gets a chance to speak what they want and exchange ideas and stuff. So that's my view from this point anyways.
All right, so I'm hearing the makings of a motion.
I'll move to accept Anita Thompson to the Trails Committee.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a first and we have a second. Mr. Adams, would you mind reading a roll call vote?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. So we've got a motion from Councilmember West, seconded by Grover, to appoint Anita Thompson to fill the resident position on the Trinidad Trails Advisory Committee. Starting with Councilmember West.
Yes.
Grover.
Yes.
Kelly.
Yes.
And Mayor Ladwig.
I'm going to abstain simply because of not having both folks here, but appreciate the input all the same.
And I'd like to just add that to Karen, it'd be nice, really nice to have you come to the meetings, especially bringing kids to the on those trails. I think it'd be a big, real asset. So please do. You're very welcome to come in, and we'll make sure you get a chance to talk to us.
Yeah, and I offered Karen the opportunity to join some of the short-term rental, the Planning Commission, and City Council as well. So
it's good for
I
something
think she'd make a great addition to any of those. Yeah. So come on, come on.
Yeah, I thought that was implicit in the city code that if we didn't select you for the Trails Committee, you automatically were the chair of the Planning Commission. I thought that if we could check the code.
That makes total sense.
Yeah. So Karen, I do appreciate your participation this evening. And with that, I will end the discussion decision items and call for future agenda items. Do we have future agenda items that folks haven't already heard us mention this evening that we are going to put on our future meetings? Again, we have a second meeting in February the 22nd, where we hope to consider council appointment and what was the other thing that we needed to add to that meeting? I'm drawing a blank right now. Eli, can you help me out?
Yeah, I could. And
I know you
would
have the notes, Eli. I know you have the notes.
If it wasn't so late.
Okay.
Yeah, you could keep talking and I'll try to remember it.
I can actually help. Mayor, it's Mike Morgan. I have a suggestion, and Eli's well aware of it, and so is Wes, and I believe you are too. It's regarding the recent passing of an increase to our transit occupancy tax, otherwise known as a hotel tax, which is apparently unconstitutional. I've asked them to put that on for discussion and action. I'm not sure what we should do. I have a couple of suggestions. I think other people would like to hear about this. I first brought this up, I believe, in December, but I have a January 19th, 2022 letter here about it saying, attention, honorable city council and staff. We received your letter indicating an increase in the transit occupancy tax, TOT. What we didn't receive is any reason, justification, or stated authority for apparently arbitrarily increasing the City of Trinidad TOT rate a full 2%. Please provide such. And I attached the Constitution of the State of California, Article XIII 13C, Section 1, Section 3, that explains that you may not increase tax unless and until that tax is submitted to the electorate. A general tax must be submitted to the electorate and approved by a majority vote. That seems to apply. There's more. And I also asked about the initiative process to repeal it. So I know Gabe has been working on this. I've been working on it. Eli's been working on it. But I'd like to see us talk about it in the public and address it at the next meeting.
All righty. Paula, I see your hand is up. You're off mute, so you can begin. There you are.
Not to perseverate on this, but I will follow up with Eli about what's happening with the feasibility study that PWA is doing, as well as GHD apparently is working with them. But I'd like there to be an open public forum to notify the public of the details. Because the bottom line is, correct me if I'm mistaken on this, that the city will not be eligible for grants for developing the Luffenholz watershed until this feasibility study is nailed down. So there's a time crunch on it. In the meantime, it's costing X thousands of dollars every month. And I may be misreading the financial information, but it seemed like it was well over $30,000 that we were paying in contracted services. And I'm assuming it's for these engineering services. I will follow up on all of this, but I would like a report given to the public, and I'd even offer to do the report after following up with Eli, or Eli and I can do it, whomever. But I'd like there to be a monthly public notification on the progress of this project.
All right. Other future agenda items? All right, as always, if you think of other things that the city needs to bring to these council meetings, please let us know. Otherwise, thank you very much for your participation this evening, and I wish you a good evening.
Thanks, everyone.